So remember this guy, John Crabby? Remember him from a previous video? A video that I shot here in Dean Cemetery when it wasn't pishing down. Well, one of his numerous grandchildren was Edith Crabby, and she married into another famous Scotch whisky family. On the 29th of March 1899, she was joined in holy matrimony to Charles Mackinlay, the grandson of the well-known Leith whisky merchant of the same name. So it's often stated that Charles Mackinlay established his business back in 1815, except of course when it's stated that it was founded in 1820. Now this is kind of confusing given there are two different dates, but what's even more confusing is that Charles was actually born in 1809, and so, you know, although I'm sure he was an exceptionally bright kid, whichever of those dates you take, I doubt he was capable of setting up in business at the tender age of either 6 or 11 years old. He did, however, become a partner in a business when he was 30 years old, and it was that business which had its roots in a different company, that of John Hunter, a tea, wine and spirit merchant in Leith, where Charles had also been an apprentice. Now that business had been established back in 1815, and so when Charles Mackinlay and Company was born in 1847, I guess that was the date they went with. But with regards to 1820, I'm afraid I don't have a Scooby as to why that was ever used, so if you do know, please get in touch. Charles Mackinlay & Co. grew to be one of the most reputable Scotch whisky merchants in Leith, and when Charles died in 1867, his death led to his sons taking over the running of the business. The younger of the two, Charles William, is buried here at Rosebank Cemetery in Leith with his father, but the other son, James, is buried elsewhere. He's actually buried over in Dean Cemetery, to be precise. And it was James who partnered with John Burney to build the now lost Glenallachie Distillery in Inverness, where production started at the end of 1894. When Charles William died 2 years later, in 1896, James made his son, also called Charles, a partner in the firm. And it was this Charles, I mean, the struggle regarding the dearth of first names is real, but it was this Charles who married Edith Crabby. At the start of the 1900s, the trade was still struggling in the aftermath of the Paterson crash. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that, here's the shameless plug alert. Yeah, just buy my book. But even so, Charles Mackinlay & Co. started to build new bonded warehouses in Leith, and they would eventually have 4 bonded warehouses in the port, as well as a cooperage. Over the years, the firm established numerous brands. There's Mackinlay's Rare Old Highland Malt, the original Mackinlay, VOB, Mackinlay's Legacy, amongst many others. And it was in 1907 that Ernest Shackleton opted for Mackinlay's as the official whisky on board the SS Endurance for his expedition to the Antarctic. After the First World War, Mackinlay's acquired Glenallachie Distillery and also became joint licensees of Little Mill Distillery together with another well-known Leith firm, J.G. Thompson, who were based over at the Vaults, which today is, of course, the home of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. James Mackinlay died in 1926. Charles's son, who was called Ian, now Ian, that makes a nice change, had joined the firm 2 years before his grandfather died, and in 1932 became a partner in the company. In 1961, Charles Mackinlay & Company was acquired by Scottish and Newcastle breweries, who merged it with another of their acquisitions, John Macpherson and Sons, to form the, well, I'd say rather unimaginatively named Mackinlay Macpherson Limited. 6 years later, the new company oversaw the construction of Glenallachie Distillery in Speyside, and then in the 1970s, Mackinlay's relaunched Jura's single malt back onto the market. So they are indeed the ones to blame. After various mergers and acquisitions, both Jura and the Mackinlay brand today are in the E150A stained hands of White & Mackay. But it all started with this man, Charles Mackinlay.